Release documentation is a critical component in the software development lifecycle. It ensures that all stakeholders, including developers, testers, and end users, are well informed about the changes, improvements, and fixes in a new software release. Proper documentation helps in maintaining transparency, improving communication, and facilitating smoother transitions between different versions of the software. In the context of DevOps, release documentation plays a pivotal role in continuous integration and continuous deployment (CI/CD) pipelines, ensuring that every release is well documented and traceable. Release notes are essential for communicating the details of a software release to all stakeholders. They typically include information about new features, bug fixes, known issues, and any other relevant changes. Release notes help users understand what has changed, why it has changed, and how it impacts them. For developers and testers, release notes provide a historical record of changes, which can be invaluable for troubleshooting and future development. In a DevOps environment, well-crafted release notes can significantly enhance collaboration and efficiency. Effective release notes should be clear, concise, and comprehensive. They typically include the following components: a summary of the release, new features, bug fixes, improvements, known issues, and any additional notes or instructions. The summary provides a high-level overview of the release, while the detailed sections offer more specific information. Including screenshots or links to further documentation can also be helpful. The goal is to provide enough information to inform and guide users without overwhelming them with unnecessary details. Creating effective release notes involves several best practices. First, use a consistent format and structure to make the notes easy to read and navigate. Second, write in clear, simple language, avoiding technical jargon whenever possible. Third, focus on the user perspective, highlighting changes that impact them the most. Fourth, include links to additional resources, such as user guides or FAQs, for more detailed information. Finally, review and edit the release notes thoroughly to ensure accuracy and clarity before publishing them. API documentation is a crucial aspect of software development, especially in a DevOps environment. It provides developers with the information they need to understand and use an API effectively. Good API documentation includes detailed descriptions of endpoints, request and response formats, authentication methods, error codes, and examples. It serves as a reference guide for developers, helping them integrate and interact with the API efficiently. In the context of DevOps, well-documented APIs facilitate automation, integration, and collaboration across different teams and tools. Effective API documentation should include several key elements: an overview of the API, detailed descriptions of each endpoint, request and response formats, authentication and authorization methods, error codes and handling, and examples of usage. The overview provides a high-level understanding of the API's purpose and functionality. Detailed endpoint descriptions help developers understand how to interact with the API. Including examples and code snippets can make the documentation more practical and easier to follow. Clear and comprehensive API documentation is essential for successful API integration and usage. Creating high-quality API documentation involves several best practices. First, use a consistent and logical structure to organize the information. Second, write in clear, concise language, avoiding unnecessary complexity. Third, provide examples and code snippets to illustrate how the API works in practice. Fourth, keep the documentation up to date with any changes or updates to the API. Fifth, include a section for frequently asked questions, FAQs, and troubleshooting tips. Finally, gather feedback from developers and continuously improve the documentation based on their input. Several tools can help streamline the process of creating release documentation, including release notes and API documentation. Popular tools for release notes include Confluence, GitHub Releases, and Jira. These tools offer templates and automation features to simplify the creation and distribution of release notes. For API documentation, tools like Swagger, Postman, and Redoc are widely used. These tools provide interactive documentation, code generation, and testing capabilities, making it easier to create and maintain comprehensive API documentation. Choosing the right tools can significantly enhance the efficiency and quality of your release documentation. Automation can play a significant role in creating and maintaining release documentation. By integrating documentation tools with your CI/CD pipeline, you can automatically generate and update release notes and API documentation with each new release. Tools like Jira and GitHub can be configured to automatically pull information from commit messages, issue trackers, and other sources to create release notes. Similarly, tools like Swagger can automatically generate API documentation from your codebase. Automation not only saves time, but also ensures that your documentation is always up to date and accurate. Reviewing and approving release documentation is a critical step to ensure its accuracy and completeness. This process typically involves multiple stakeholders, including developers, testers, product managers, and technical writers. Each stakeholder reviews the documentation from their perspective, providing feedback and suggesting improvements. A collaborative review process helps identify any gaps or errors in the documentation, ensuring that it meets the needs of all users. Once the documentation is reviewed and approved, it can be published and distributed to the relevant stakeholders. Effective distribution of release documentation ensures that all stakeholders have access to the information they need. This can be achieved through various channels, such as email notifications, internal wikis, project management tools, and public websites. In a DevOps environment, integrating documentation distribution with your CI/CD pipeline can automate this process, ensuring that the latest documentation is always available. Providing easy access to release notes and API documentation helps improve transparency, communication, and collaboration across teams and with end users. Maintaining and updating release documentation is an ongoing process. As new features are added, bugs are fixed, and improvements are made, the documentation must be updated to reflect these changes. Regular reviews and updates ensure that the documentation remains accurate and relevant. In a DevOps environment, this can be facilitated through automation and integration with your CI/CD pipeline. By continuously maintaining and updating your release documentation, you ensure that all stakeholders have access to the most current and accurate information. In conclusion, release documentation, including release notes and API documentation, is a vital component of the software development lifecycle. It ensures transparency, improves communication, and facilitates smoother transitions between software versions. By following best practices and leveraging the right tools, you can create high-quality documentation that meets the needs of all stakeholders. In a DevOps environment, automation can further enhance the efficiency and accuracy of your documentation process. Ultimately, well-crafted release documentation contributes to the success of your software projects and the satisfaction of your users.